3 days before Thanksgiving, my phone buzzed. Don't bother coming, you're not welcome here anymore. I stared at it, seated behind the glass desk in my Manhattan penthouse office, 39 floors above Central Park. Snow dusted the skyline. Below, guests stepped out of black cars and into the golden glow of the Sutton Royale Hotel. My hotel. Though my family didn't know that. The irony almost made me laugh. Almost. Another message followed. We'll be arriving at the Sutton as usual tomorrow. At least, we still have our tradition, even if you've ruined everything else. Their tradition. The same five-star hotel where the Cartwright family had celebrated Thanksgiving every year for the past 25 years. The place where I'd been made to feel like a stranger since I was 17. I picked up the desk phone. Layla, could you pull up the Cartwright Thanksgiving reservation? Already in front of me, Miss Cartwright, my assistant replied. Your parents and siblings will be checking in tomorrow. 3 luxury suites, full. I leaned back in my chair, eyes closing for a moment as last year's memories surged forward. That was when everything changed. You want to use Cartwright funds to build transitional housing? My father had snapped, waving my proposal like it was trash. Our name supports museums and concert halls, not drug addicts and single mothers. People are struggling, Dad, I'd said, calm but firm. We could help. My mother shook her head. You sound just like Aunt Eleanor. She embarrassed this family with her causes. As Aunt Eleanor disowned for her activism decades ago. The same woman who secretly backed my purchase of the Sutton Royale when it hit the market last spring. My sister Caroline had added, honestly, Elise, sometimes I wonder if you're even a Cartwright. And my brother Mason? He'd just chuckled. Let her throw her pennies at the poor. Oh wait, she doesn't have any. What they didn't know, I'd been quietly building an empire. The Sutton Royale was just one of 12 properties I owned across 3 countries, along with 2 nonprofit foundations that fund real change. So this year, I didn't reply to my mother's message. Instead, I gave their rooms to my staff, the housekeeping team, the cooks, the night shift concierge, people who'd earned warmth and luxury far more than my family ever had. Let them show up and see what not welcome really looks like. My phone buzzed again. A photo from Caroline, my sister. The family gathered in our childhood estate in Westchester, toasting wine glasses, finalizing their annual Sutton Royale Thanksgiving itinerary. Too bad you'll be spending Thanksgiving alone, her caption read. Maybe you can serve soup at one of your shelters. I stared at it for a moment, then smiled. Not out of bitterness, but pride. They had no idea what I'd done with the Sutton Royale since acquiring it last spring. The wasteful banquet menus replaced with sustainable catering partnerships, green energy initiatives that had cut costs without compromising luxury. A quiet, off-season rehabilitation and skills program for unhoused women, one that had already helped over 50 participants find permanent employment. Changes that made the hotel more than a resort, a sanctuary, a mission. And they'd stayed blind to it, too wrapped in privilege to look beyond their champagne. I pressed the intercom button. Layla, please connect me to Manager Darden. Right away, Ms. Cartwright. Seconds later, his voice came through the line. Elise, how can I help? The Cartwright Thanksgiving reservation, I said. I assume it's still under their usual suite block. Yes, he said. 3 luxury suites, full staff support. Everything to their specifications. He paused. They still don't know you're the owner? Correct, I said. Then exhaled. Cancel it. Silence. You mean the entire reservation? Every suite, every service, all of it. Unleash. They've been guests for over 2 decades. I know. Another pause. I'll cancel it now. Would you like me to notify them? No, I said, smiling faintly. I'll take care of that. I opened my mother's last text and typed slowly, deliberately. Actually, the Sutton just contacted me. Your reservation's been canceled. 3 dots popped up right away. What? That's not possible. We've had that booking since July. Not anymore. The next buzz was a phone call from my father. I let it go to voicemail. Then another from Caroline. Dad's calling the manager right now. This must be a mistake. I put my phone face down on the desk. No, Carolyn, not a mistake. For once, you're just not welcome. Not because I was late. Not because I was too intense or too different, but because this is mine now. And I've learned that sometimes the best way to reclaim your place isn't to ask for a seat at their table, it's to build your own. And take back the keys they never thought you held. This is ridiculous. I waited, calm, knowing exactly what would happen next. Within minutes, my father's name appeared on my phone screen. A text followed. The manager says the cancellation came from the owner. This is outrageous. We're one of their most loyal clients. I took a deep breath and replied, yes, the owner canceled it. In fact, she's canceling your permanent booking altogether. A pause. Then, Mom. Since when does a woman own the Sutton Royale? My hands were steady as I typed the truth. Since last year, when I bought it. Silence. Then came the wave, texts from my brother Mason. Stop playing, Elise. From my sister Caroline. This isn't funny. Even my father. What are you talking about? I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the frame deed. The Sutton Royale, owned by Cartwright Hospitality Collective. Signed and sealed. Sent the photo to the group chat. More silence. And from my mother. This is impossible. You don't have that kind of money. You work for that nonprofit. I laughed. Actually laughed. They still thought I ran a local community outreach center, never once asking how I managed to fly first class or afford my Manhattan penthouse. Never wondering how that nonprofit work had me consulting for international firms and speaking at global summits. I typed, check the documents, Mom. The Sutton Royale is mine. Your special place now belongs to the daughter you disinvited from Thanksgiving. My office phone buzzed. Layla's voice came through. Elise, your father's on the line. He's demanding to speak to the owner. I smiled. Put him through. It was time. Elise, my father's voice came over the speaker, brittle and strained. What have you done? Nothing yet, I said calmly. But I think it's time we had a long overdue conversation about family, privilege, and consequences. Would you like to have it over the phone? I added. Or would you prefer to meet in person? I have a lovely office on the top floor overlooking your old Thanksgiving suite. The silence that followed? 20 years in the making. Hour later, they filed in like scolded children. Caroline in oversized sunglasses, Mason checking his watch, my parents stiff and silent. Gone was their usual arrogance. In its place, confusion, bitterness, and something unfamiliar. Fear. Please, I gestured to the chairs. Have a seat. Through the panoramic glass behind me, the Sutton Royale shimmered in the afternoon sun. My legacy. How? My father finally snapped, refusing to sit. How did you afford this place? I leaned back in my chair and smiled. Because while you were laughing at my causes, I was building a kingdom. If you believe quiet strength speaks louder than shouting, and that karma sometimes wears a tailored suit, don't forget to subscribe. Elise's next move will leave more than just her family speechless. You never cared enough to ask what I was really doing, did you? I said quietly. Too busy mocking my bleeding heart projects to realize I was building something. Building what? Caroline snapped, arms crossed. But I caught the tremble in her voice. Cartwright Hospitality Collective. Their expressions blanked. 15 luxury resorts, I continued, across 3 continents, every one of them sustainable, every one profitable, all of them blending elegance with social impact. My mother collapsed into a chair, her composure cracking for the first time in years. 15 resorts? She echoed faintly. But you run a nonprofit. No, I said, measured. I partner with nonprofits. We offer job training through transitional housing programs. We work with rehabilitation centers, shelters, and vocational schools. Sutton Royale alone has helped over 300 people rebuild their lives. Quietly, respectfully, with dignity. This is ridiculous, Mason scoffed. You're making this up. I leaned over and pressed the intercom. Layla, would you bring in the portfolio binder? Moments later, Leela stepped in carrying a sleek leather folder and began handing out printed summaries. My family stared at the documents. Property deeds, annual financials, social impact reports, investor portfolios. My father flipped through his copy slowly. $6 billion in assets, he muttered. 40% higher margins than industry average, I added. Turns out compassion scales surprisingly well. Caroline tossed her packet on my desk. Fine. You're rich. You've made your point. But canceling our reservation? That's just petty. I stood up. Calm. Controlled. Petty? Like being disinvited from 20 Thanksgivings? Like having every idea I brought to the table dismissed because it didn't fit your narrow definition of respectable? My mother looked up, voice breaking. But we're family. I laughed, gently. Was it family when you cut off Aunt Eleanor for doing the same thing? When you turned her into a ghost because she chose to help rather than posture? At her name, they flinched. Speaking of Eleanor, I pressed another button on the desk. The screen on the wall flickered, then came to life. Aunt Eleanor's face appeared, beaming. Hello, brother dear, she said to my father, voice cool. Quite the surprise. You're part of this? He asked, backing up a step. I helped Elise buy Sutton Royale, she said proudly. I saw in her what none of you did. Vision, heart, and the intelligence to turn values into value. You helped her take our special place, my mother accused. Eleanor's smile sharpened. Your special place? The one where you spent 2 decades making her feel small, while she quietly built something that serves thousands? We'll sue, Mason threatened. We have permanent booking rights. Check your contract, I said, calmly. It expired last month. No renewal clause. I didn't renew them, I said. Silence pressed down on the room like fog. Outside, the Manhattan skyline glittered under late afternoon light. Cars moved steadily below. Guests continued checking into the Sutton Royale. The world didn't pause. Paradise, it seemed, continued, indifferent to the unraveling in my office. Finally, my father spoke, voice low. What do you want, Elise? I turned toward the window. What do I want? I let the question hang there, then turned to face them. I want you to understand what you missed, not just about me, but about what success actually looks like. I walked slowly back to my desk. The Sutton Royale isn't just a luxury hotel. It's a platform, a proof of concept. Our properties have helped hundreds of people rebuild their lives. We've introduced eco-sustainable operations that the industry now copies. We've shown, with data and dignity, that business can serve both profit and purpose. And we're just supposed to accept this? Caroline challenged. That you're right and we were all wrong? No, I said calmly. You're supposed to learn from it, to understand that your vision of success isn't the only one. I tapped a button on my tablet. The wall screen lit up. Photos rotated across it. A mother and daughter graduating from one of our employment programs. A veteran receiving his hotel management certification. A group of children in crisp uniforms. Outside a newly built school in the Philippines. Funded by profits from our Bali property. This, I said, my voice softer now, is success. This is what you never saw. My father slumped into a chair, his eyes clouded. I was wrong, he whispered. The words hung in the air, 20 years late. We all were, my mother added, dabbing at her mascara with a silk handkerchief. Caroline stayed quiet. But the defiance in her eyes was gone. So, what now? Mason asked finally. I said back behind my desk. Up to you. Tomorrow, we're hosting Thanksgiving dinner, right here, not just for guests, but for staff, trainees, and anyone in our programs who needs a place to belong. I looked at each of them. You're welcome to join us, not as VIPs, not as guests of honor, but as people willing to listen, to understand, and maybe to change. My mother's voice cracked. You'd still have us, after everything? This was never about revenge, I said gently. It's about transformation. about giving you a chance to see what's possible when you care about something beyond yourselves. And Eleanor smiled from the screen. Elise built something extraordinary, James. Something your parents would have been proud of. Not because it made billions, but because it made a difference. My father rose slowly. We'll need time. I nodded. Take it. But remember, I said gently, Thanksgiving dinner is at 6 tomorrow. If you come ready to see Sutton Royale through new eyes. They filed out in silence, no smug remarks, no parting shots, just quiet footsteps and the weight of their own awakening. Their shoulders slumped, their certainty unraveled. As the door clicked shut behind them, Aunt Eleanor's voice came through the screen again. You did it, sweetheart. You changed everything. I smiled at her image. No, we did it. You believed in me when no one else would. They'll come tomorrow, she said, with quiet conviction. Their pride may be bruised, but their eyes are opening. She was right. The next evening my family returned, not in black car-chauffeured town cars or luxury sedans, but in modest rentals. No red carpet airs, no designer bravado. They walked into the grand ballroom of the Sutton Royale, now transformed with long tables filled with staff, program graduates, and guests from all walks of life. Thanksgiving was alive in the room, warm, human, real. They sat next to the people they once overlooked. They listened to stories of addiction overcome, of careers started, of children thriving because their parents had been given a second chance. They didn't interrupt, they didn't flinch. For once, they absorbed. Caroline now oversees our education partnerships, developing programs that offer scholarships to staff families. Mason manages community outreach, coordinating with shelters and re-entry programs across the city. Even my parents have changed. They now proudly host events at the Sutton Royale, telling anyone who will listen about their daughter's vision for responsible luxury. Last week, a journalist asked me, why not cut them off completely? Why let them back in? I showed her a photo from last Thanksgiving. My family? Not posing, but serving, passing plates, sharing food, listening with open hearts, becoming part of something greater than themselves. Because, I told her, sometimes the best revenge isn't punishment. It's transformation. Today, Sutton Royale continues to thrive. Not just as a destination, but as a place where privilege meets purpose. Where luxury carries responsibility. Where lives change quietly, steadily, powerfully. And every Thanksgiving we gather here together. Not as the old Cartwrights, driven by ego, status, and exclusion, but as something better, something earned. Sometimes, you have to lose the version of paradise you were taught to want, to find the one that truly matters. Understanding. If you followed my story this far, I want to thank you, not just for listening, but for seeing me. For years, I was told my heart was too soft, my vision too idealistic, and my values too naive. But I've learned that quiet persistence can build empires, and compassion, when paired with strategy, can rewrite legacies. If this story resonated with you, I invite you to leave a comment below. Tell me what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have forgiven your family? Would you have given them a second chance? Your support means more than you know. Hit that subscribe button if you believe that power doesn't always have to be loud, and that success should lift others, not just ourselves. And here's my advice to anyone out there who's ever felt underestimated. Don't waste energy proving your worth to those who refuse to see it. Instead, build something so undeniable they can't ignore it. Create your version of paradise, one built not on ego, but on purpose. Because in the end, the best legacy you can leave is a life that made others better. And trust me, that kind of success never goes unnoticed.